Hi, welcome to week 2. I wanted to give you some idea of what we did last week and some idea of what we're going to do this week before we jump into the week. And I'll tend to do that all the time so that we are on the same page. So, recap of last week. I think the main things we spoke about are can fall into two chunks. The first was the philosophy of the class, or the content of the class. And I would like to again emphasize that although a lot of requirements and prerequisites could be there, it's an applied field, it borrows from so many disciplines and it's become almost a discipline of its own. We will try to do as much during the videos as possible so that you don't feel like you are in any way handicapped by not having done one of the background courses. However, when I do reach a point where I think it's appropriate not to keep going, I will let you know, and at that point what you'll realize is that you need to do X before you can do more of finance. But this is self-contained. I want to emphasize that. Then we moved on last week, we moved on to content because we have 10 weeks and we got to keep moving. And I told you that a lot of what's going to happen in this class is really work that you will do. That's my philosophy of teaching, is that I know a little bit, I can motivate you to learn, I can show you why of things, and that's my job. But a lot of actual practice that you need to do in finance with real world problems has to happen at your end. So we will introduce everything with examples, and last week this is what we did. We basically covered two issues, and the first, and I'll just draw a timeline. And we started with something here, and I'll, for the sake of just reference, draw just two points. And remember, we started with one period and went on to 2 and more. But we carried this forward, say, to something called future value. And then, after recognizing that, we also did what does the PV of something in the future look like. And as you can see from this, the future value turns out of this will be P, which is the initial value, times 1 plus R raised to power 2, right? And that 2 can become N. And we got very familiar with going back and forth with all of this. So what is PV? Well, PV is pretty straightforward. It's the future value, in this case, 1 plus R raised to power 2. And you can recognize how similar the two are. One is like looking at yourself in a mirror, and that's what I like about finance, is it's very logical. I warn you again though, all the answers that you're going to get are wrong. So the process is right, the answers are wrong. And the reason the answers are wrong is because you're worrying about the future, not the past. And for the time being, we are assuming there's no uncertainty, but I reminded you many times that at the back of your mind, risk will always be there. And that's what's real, right? So because of risk, in some senses, everything you calculate is wrong. But the process and the way of thinking and the framework is simply awesome. So I would encourage you to go back and do a couple of things, even before you proceed. First, and this I'll say every week, even though it may become repetitive, I think it's important. It's all the more important because you are controlling your learning. I'm not. In a classroom, I have a lot more control. Everybody's there and so on and so forth. But here, you are in control, and that's the way it should be, right? And I'm hoping that online education forces regular education to become individualized. You know, as I said last time, I feel frustrated sometimes that I cannot teach everybody the way they want to learn in a big classroom because I'm doing it in real time. Hopefully online can allow me to teach each person at a time. But that puts some pressure on you to perform. So this is what I expect every week, and I'll repeat it. And obviously you can ignore me. I mean, this is your life, not mine. But it'll help, especially in finance. So these are the couple of things you want to do. You want to make sure you understand the video. The good news is you can go back and forth, but I will not provide resources specific to the video. Any resources available are standard textbooks, or I will give you specific formulas and so on I'll write up and put on the website. And there are several reasons for this. And one is, fundamental reason is, I want you to learn actively. I think I spoke last time, if you're sitting there and just consuming, which unfortunately is most of education, it's not learning in my book. For learning, you want to be there. So it's nothing says about humanity that you need to get up at 7 and be in a class at 8. And then after that, every 2 hours, a bell rings and you have to change your mindset to learn something new. That's all artificial. It's like a factory. Humans are much more complicated and interesting people. So I would encourage you to learn on your own. However, review the video and make your own notes from the video. It will really help. Second, every week we have assignments, and last week's assignments were a little bit easy because we didn't do that much. However, you need to familiarize yourself with the assignment because finance is logical. So finance is not one day I say one thing and the next day I say something that's totally contradictory, which by the way happens in life. People say so many things. On the one hand, on the second hand, God gave us only 2 hands, but sometimes people make 15 different scenarios from the same issue. Finance keeps you disciplined. So if you want to use the framework repeatedly, you got to do the problems. So last week's problems you should have done by now. If not, I would encourage you right now to stop watching the video and redo those assignments, or do them again if you've done them in a fast fashion or not completely. Or if you haven't done them at all, do them and then watch this video, because it'll make your life easier and I'll be happy. And remember, I can see, I can feel you. So it's not something I'm saying in isolation. I mean it, and I hope you take this advice.